So welcome to the last mission design workshop. Uh, this one we're talking about enhancing immersion. So what do I mean um, by enhancing immersion here? I'm talking about like how much your pilots feel like this is the real deal. So when we are in a simulation here, we're trying to mimic a real life military operation, and that's kind of where everybody gets their kicks from, is feeling like they're in a real military operation, right? So we call that being immersed. And immersion is something that you as a mission designer have a lot of influence over. So say we've got a mission where there's a bunch of infantry in the ground, and friendly infantry in the ground, they're in contact with the enemy. Say you want to support those friendly infantry in the ground in a sort of close air support scenario. Um, you could just say, okay, we got troops here, there's bad guys 300 feet to the north, go and kill them. Well, that's not very immersive. Now, if you put together a proper plan, you got lots of pictures, some military lingo here and there, everything is set up in like it's a believable military situation, then you're going to have a much better level of immersion quality for your mission. One of the easiest ways to really immerse your pilots into your story of your mission is paying attention to detail. So even small little details can make a big difference. Um, so say you're using a real world location like the Behaviour Valley, and you've got mission there. Um, You can use stuff like Google Maps or Wikipedia to learn more about the Behaviour Valley, what the population is like, what the history of conflict was like in that area, and just the general layout of the towns and industries and whatever else. You can look up all that in Google Maps and get an idea of what it's supposed to be like in the real world, and then you can use that information to help you form your mission in that region. So let's say you want to do an air assault to capture a fuel storage facility. Um, Maybe you want to find an actual fuel storage facility in the area that you're operating in, and then that way you have got a real life location that you're using, and it's much more realistic when you're using a real place. Another thing is real world weather. We kind of talked about this in the last workshop, but windy.com is a great resource for that. You can scoot over to your uh, area that you're operating in and just check out the weather that's there. So let's head over there now. Say we're going to operating somewhere in Syria here, and let's say we're in Bashar al-Assad. So that is right by Yabla here. Um, so right away you can automatically see lines showing the wind. If I click down, I can get wind direction. If I click on the little arrow, I can get a forecast, so I can see, 9 o'clock in the morning, it's going to be 27 degrees out, partially cloudy. Winds are going to be 5 knots, gusting up to 13, coming up from the south. So I can automatically adjust my weather that way. And then as well, I can go to more layers here, and if I type in pressure, and I click on that site, then I can get the pressure and convert that into millimeters of mercury or inches of mercury for my DCS weather. Just using real life weather is a bit of a handy resource. Now this is a good idea if you're making your mission for the current time and year that you're in. If you're not in the current time and year, like say it's currently August right now. Say you're running a mission from March, then you can also look up historical weather of that area. So you could write, pick a city like Latakia or whatever, and say historical weather for Latakia or seasonal weather for Latakia, and then you can go to look at March. We can actually do that right now. So if I search up seasonal weather Latakia here, just go to the first result, and we'll go to March, for example. We can see that the highs are around 18 degrees, and the lows are around 11 degrees. And then I can even look at the precipitation. So March, it's looks like it's about 50 millimeters of precipitation. Kind of dry. It's just it looks like it's at the end of the wet season, around the March time of year. So that's another idea you can use for getting real world weather of a location. And lastly, forces and equipment. So this is the units that DCS puts per country does not necessarily reflect what it is in real life. So sometimes if you're using historical, so like the Cold War era, or it's more modern, and this country has a certain type of equipment that you have that you want to use, you can look it up and say, okay, let's say I want to know what kind of tanks that Lebanon has. So I can search up Lebanese military equipment, and usually the first result that comes up is a Wikipedia page saying list of equipment of the whatever forces. And then I can just scroll down and look, got here, tanks. So I can see that Lebanon uses M60s, M48s, and T55s. And sometimes it even tells you when they were used up until, or when they got the tanks. So we can see that the M60s were delivered in 2009, the M48s came in 1984, the T55s came in 1988. So just a little bit more detailed information about the type of equipment that your forces may be using in your mission, and so that you can make sure that you're accurate for your time and country. Now, if you're looking at, say, insurgent groups, that might be a little more harder to find information. Say if you're trying to like replicate a real insurgency group like the Taliban, trying to figure out what equipment they have may be a little bit more difficult. Usually when it comes to insurgent groups, I always recommend making a fictional one, and then that's completely up to your discretion. So it could be just like a militia fighter who has technicals as their most powerful weapon, or maybe they're like a really big insurgent organization that captured a country, and all the military assets there, so they could have access to stuff like tanks and anti-air vehicles. It's entirely up to you what you have, but just make sure that you're being consistent with it is all. Lastly, if you want to figure out how the militaries organize their platoons and squads, so if you say you want to have a squad of Bradleys, U.S. Army Bradleys, you can go to this website, Battle Order, and we can click on the states here. And if I want to see, okay, what does a striker platoon look like? Not Bradleys, but strikers. So I can see, okay, striker platoon consists of 4 vehicles with rifle squad. There's 3 vehicle operators and 6 infantry. Oh, sorry, no, there's 2 vehicle operators and 9 infantry in these vehicles, except for the third one. And it looks like the vehicles are also broken up into sections. So you've got a platoon consists of 4 vehicles, but each section has 2 vehicles. So then I can place down my groups of strikers into groups of 2, and that'll make it a little more realistic in that sense. Not all of these are perfectly filled out. So let's say if I go to Switzerland, for example, They've only got one thing, and that's the infantry platoon. And all I got for information on this platoon is just the APCs and the infantry inside the APCs. I don't have any information on tanks. I don't have any information on engineering, nothing like that. So just keep that in mind that it's not a completely filled out resource, but it certainly is handy for most situations. Alright, let's look at what a realistic AO has. So when we talk about the AO, that's the area of operation. That's where your mission is taking place, where everybody's flying around, all the ground vehicles are moving around, and the business is being done, essentially. There's a few different ways you can set up an AO. You can just kind of slap units down all over the place and call it a done deal, but that's probably not very realistic, not believable. It just kind of feels like a video game at that point. Instead, you can sort of organize your AO as if it were a real operation. So you're going to have stuff like front lines, the FLOT and the FLET, which is kind of like the front line of... FLOT is the front line of friendlies, FLET is the front line of the enemies. You could have support units in there, so maybe there's some combat supports like engineering, ramming, refueling groups, medical groups on the ground, stuff like that. Or even command posts, forward command posts in the area. Keep in mind the fog of war. So I'm not talking about the fog of war in the mission editor, map F10 settings. I'm talking about real world fog of war, which is what it essentially refers to is the information or the intelligence that your coalition or planning team has at hand. So say you are going out and you're looking for several enemy armor screens in an area. The fog of war means you don't know exactly where those armor screens are positioned or what their numbers are, but you do know that they're there. If you ignore the fog of war, for example, an example of ignoring the fog of war, I suppose I should say, is just putting down the exact position of all those units. Maybe you do have intel of where those units are, and that's great. Maybe you had like a recon group go out and find them. But typically, unless you have a legitimate reason to know where those units are, the fog of war dictates that you do not. You just have a general idea. Yeah, basically just be vague. Say, you know, there's possible armor groups in these grids, or like if there's a path that the enemy's taking, you could say the enemy might ingress from this route or this route or this route. It could be one of these three. When you talk about limited equipment in an AO, you can't just throw hundreds of units all over the place. It's not likely that there's going to be tons and tons and tons of friendlies and enemies all over the place. It's likely that they're going to be strategically placed at different areas, choke points and high ground and stuff like that, because it's not very resourceful to just have like 30 tank platoons in an area. You're likely only going to have a few. And then last, we talk about the no-fly zone. So this is where your pilots aren't allowed to go. It could be maybe it's over a civilian area to reduce collateral damage, or there's an area that poses a significant risk to friendly aircraft. Generally, there's going to be a no-fly zone in most AOs, so just think about that and think about including it in your mission. So this is a diagram of a realistic AO. So I've got some clear front lines. I've got the FLOT, so the front line of own troops. That's this blue line over here. And you can see the friendly armor, the friendly screens along the lines. We've got the FLET, which is the front line of enemy troops. This is kind of where we know that the enemy is. Anything beyond this line is probably going to be saturated in enemy. We're using real locations here, so this is the Golan Heights operation in the UN DOF zone. So I've got the actual borders of the zone plotted out here, both the Alpha and the Bravo line. And then the positions as well are actual UNDOF positions. So we've got camp, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, and then there's several positions around, so 60A, 68, 62, 37, and then the Philippines headquarters. So we're using realistic locations that can be referenced in a real world map. We've also got friendly forces placed strategically, so we've got roads coming off the heights here, here, and here and here. So we've got friendly units positioned on these roads. Areas that don't have the roads, we're not really too concerned about. Our friendlies, they'll have a good line of sight between each of these areas, so they can see if anybody's trying to sneak through the desert. We don't know where the enemy is. The intel is pretty vague. We know that they could be coming from the northeast into our AO. That's all we know where they're going to be coming from. Our start position, the FARP, it's far enough away from the AO that it's not going to be in a threat area. It's behind the friendly line, and but it's close enough to the AO that it's not going to be a forever flight to get there, if that's what you're looking for. And while the no-fly zone isn't marked on the map, there is a no-fly order, so no flying 2 miles east of line Bravo. So essentially, after 2 miles from the line Bravo here, I don't want helicopters flying any further than that. Now let's have a look at this AO. Oh, sorry. This is the real-world resource I used to make this AO, so you can see the actual area that we're in here, the Philippines headquarters, the different United Nations posts, stuff like that. I just got this from the Wikipedia page of the UNDOF. Alright, so this is the same AO, but it's not set up realistically. There's no logical front line here. Everything's just kind of mixed and mingled together. There's too many units everywhere. Like, we've got tons and tons of tanks just surrounding the FARP, and the enemy has a whole bunch of units just scattered all over the AO too. There's also too much intel on the enemy. We know exactly where each unit is, and we know exactly which route each unit is going to be taking to get to the posts. That intel would definitely be hidden behind the fog of war. It's no way that you know where the enemy is going to be driving towards exactly, unless you've somehow gotten a spy or something like that to infiltrate and determine exactly what their plan is going to be. FARP is way too close. It's about 4 miles from the nearest enemy unit, and there's not enough defense between the. Assuming this would be the front line, if there is a front line, there's not enough defense between the front line and the FARP. There's no care for the real-world location. Like, sure, we're in the Golan Heights here, but there's no borders. The posts are just kind of placed everywhere. They just have numbers for names. There's no actual organization to them. And there's nothing here about a no-fly zone, so there's nothing stopping a pilot from flying all the way out into the desert in the east, other than maybe getting shot down by something on the way. So this would be not an ideal AO to use. Okay, we touched on this last workshop as well, but we're going to review it a bit more. So maintaining immersion during a mission, like when you're the host running the mission, make sure that you keep the veil that covers the simulation. Like, we know the simulation is a game and it's on a computer, but we want to keep that veil on that's what it is and that's all it is. The veil is making people believe that it's something actually going on and they're actually part of. So to keep that veil on, that this is a real situation, you know the inner workings of the mission, your pilots do not. So stuff like spawns, AI pathfinding triggers, keep that to yourself. If something breaks, something goes wrong, make a believable excuse. So instead of saying, oh, the trigger failed to spawn the friendly tank group. You could say instead, Hammer 1, or whatever you call it, had an unexpected breakdown. Their vehicles are going to be delayed. Um, that way, you keep the simulation seeming like it's something actually happening rather than exposing the inner workings of it. Remember what intel you have, that fog of war that I talked about? Even though you know where all the enemy spawns are, where all their routes are, where they could be coming from, what kind of units they have, etc. Either as a game master where you can physically see them, or even just as the mission designer, you just kind of know where they are. Remember that you as a pilot don't actually know that, and you as a commander don't actually know that. So keep within the intel that you provided, and don't start saying things like, "Oh, the enemy's actually going to come over this hill. Let's get out of here," because that just totally breaks the fourth wall of immersion there. As well as if you're commander and you're watching the game master view and you see like an enemy tank creeping up on some friendly helicopters, you need to have a valid reason to know that that tank is there if you want to warn them. So say you have a drone in the sky, sure, maybe the drone saw the tank creep up and be like, "Hey, Shadow, you got a T-55 2 miles to your south heading towards you," picked up by the drone. But if you don't have that kind of intel, then unfortunately you're going to have to keep your mouth shut and let that tank engage your friendlies. If you're flying in a flight, keep your roles separated. So you're the commander, and you're flying in a flight, unless you're the commander in the flight. You're probably in a command center. So if you're, say, Chalk 2 in a lift flight or something like that, and the flight lead says, "Hey, Chalk 2, where are we supposed to go next?" You could just be like, "I don't know, I'm Chalk 2, I don't..." You ask command for that. Even though you are the command, you need to keep your roles separated so that people are talking properly on the command net and stuff like that. If you are flying on a flight and you lose the command radio, you need to resolve it as quick as possible. Either you leave the flight or you make an excuse. Or you leave the flight and respawn as game master, or you leave the flight and respawn in a new helicopter. And when you do that and the comms have been down for a while and you get back on comms, you need to make a valid excuse like, "Hey, comms are temporarily jammed. Command is back online." Okay, so that covers keeping the immersion, the theory of immersion in during your mission. Okay, so let's talk about enhancing your briefing, making your briefing more believable, more story-like. So first off is the story. Go figure. Uh, More specifically, the backstory and the current situation in your mission. Creating a believable and followable story is going to draw the line between your mission being just a war game or an actual mission that people are on and contributing to. So just consider the following when you're making up a story. Use names, whether it's fictional or real. Names give the people in, or the AI or elements in your mission character. So places, people, things, LZ's example, just giving them names just adds a little bit more character, a little more fuzziness to your mission here. Like your insurgents, if you have a fictional insurgent group, don't just call them insurgents. You can give them an actual name, like I don't know, the people, the People's Republic of Georgia, or the Russo-Georgian Liberators, or whatever. Make up a name in a different language. I don't know. Just give your fictional groups actual names so that they have character to them. Make sure you think about the history of what's going on. So the history of your AO, or maybe it's the history of your organization. You know, where did they come from? How did they get to where they are today? What are some, you know, events that have occurred in the past for them? Say you've got insurgents that are in an area and you need to wash them out. You know, how did they get to the area? Why are they a problem? What have they been doing in this area that made the commanders decide, okay, we need to go deal with this problem? You know, you got a problem, but what caused the problem? And that's something to think about when you think about the history of your story. If it's a real world mission, like based on a real world event, you can remark real world events that led up to it. Um, Maybe like an airstrike irritated certain government, so they retaliated with another airstrike. Just talk about the initial airstrike that agitated them. Um, and what does the rest of the world think of the situation? Does the coalition or does the United Nations denounce them, or is this kind of an isolated situation? And then remember, even after thinking of all these names and history and stuff like that, keep it brief, clear, concise. As much as people appreciate like a well thought out backstory, uh, making a great big long novel might not be the best idea unless you have like a really big campaign and you just really want to create lore for the campaign. If it's just a single mission, you better save your time and because not everybody's going to want to sit there and read an entire novel on the situation. I'd say keep it to about 1 or 2 slides whenever possible. And lastly, just like I got a couple pictures on the side here, put some pictures in there. Just kind of adds a little bit to your story. Makes it using real world pictures makes it feel more real. Background activity. So in your AO, unless it's in the middle of the desert or there's literally no civilian life to be heard of, there's likely going to be something going on around. So civilians are probably going to be on the ground, you know, just trying to live their lives in this war-torn area, especially if it's they've been, you know, living in this war zone for the last 15 years. They've learned how to live and survive out here, so there's definitely life out there. Just always keeping that in mind. And as well as if this is a military operation, it's likely this isn't an isolated operation. There's probably other stuff going on around you. Um, so you could have, you know, maybe a convoy rolling by that's going to some other operation, or it's a supply convoy along an MSR. You know, just a couple small background activity things like that can really just add a lot to your mission. So, a couple things you can consider, you know, avoid collateral damage to civilians and their infrastructure. So you could say, hey, this town, no use of ordnance in and around this town. You could put some air traffic at the airfield. If you're operating at an airport that has a runway, you could put air traffic there. Or even a FARP, you could have helicopters coming in and out if you're feeling ambitious. There could be operations going on nearby, like I said, with the convoy rolling around. Um, you could create flight corridors that say you have to follow this corridor to get to the AO because we want to avoid flying around civilian settlements as much as possible, bothering them. And your ground teams, if you've got ground units on the ground doing stuff, consider putting some support units down that are going to work with them, that will come in and be there for medical or rearming, etc., engineering. So photography in your briefing adds a lot. Just a picture really brings life to your briefings. So here's a few different pictures that I've used in some of my missions. So here's one showing a bunch of insurgents with a stolen Humvee. Um, Here's a picture of an AO that we were working in. This one's got a bunch of Iranian T-72s rolling down a road in a sort of offensive mission that we were doing. This is a VBSS, U.S. Marine Corps, doing some VBSS practice. In this picture, this is from the Prague Spring. It was used in a Cold War mission that was an uprising against the Soviet regime. And then this is just a bunch of civilians that were in distress. Same campaign area. Satellite photography also really handy. If you're using for example, you're using the Syria terrain, but your story is actually taking place in Afghanistan, throwing in a Google Maps screenshot of Afghanistan and kind of like an area that looks like where you're operating in can really help with telling people, hey, yeah, this is in Afghanistan, not Syria. So here we got Camp Shoreback in the AO. Plotted on the Google Maps picture. It's not zoomed in enough that you can see details, but you can definitely tell that this is in Afghanistan. It gives people an idea, orientates where they are in Afghanistan in the mission. These other two are screenshots that I took from in-game. So just went up really high in the sky, pulled the zoom back a bit, and then took a screenshot. So this one is Tbilisi that I edited a whole bunch to make it look like it was 1980 satellite photo. And this one is more of a modern image of a target area in Syria. So we've got kind of a larger overview showing the terrain and the nearby farms and stuff, and then we've got a zoomed in picture of the actual targets themselves. And editing your screenshots, so you did see before that I had some edits done to those screenshots. Just taking a picture in the sim does not look very real. Even just adding a little bit of zoom, so just zooming in a little bit, can make the picture seem more real, but a little bit of touch-ups certainly doesn't hurt. So in this one here, I've got kind of like a picture from an airplane of an LZ. I added film grain, a little bit of blurriness to it, and desaturation to make it look like it was a really zoomed in photograph. This is a Cold War era picture of an airfield near Tbilisi. Got that black and white, added a bunch of film grain, messed with the levels. A couple other photo editing stuff I did to that one. This is a nice clean picture. Once again, this is still edited. This is not actually straight out of DCS. You can see I zoomed in quite a bit in DCS, and then I took the picture. I cleaned up the contrast a bit. I adjusted the colors, the lighting, the temperature, and got a nice clean picture of this this drone sitting on the ground. And lastly, these pictures are of taken from Shadow Flight. This was an actual real mission that they did. They went out, they took tried to look for some SAM positions, and then they took photos of the Vivian, showing exactly what target they were looking at. Let's have a look at this this briefing here. This is an example of a briefing that I put together that's got a lot of details in it. This was Operation Ironfall. This was the last mission of the Operation Caval campaign. I had quite a bit of a story here. The situation, this kind of reviewed the Georgian Revolution, which was the campaign itself. It kind of talked about all the stuff that went on in the revolution. Talks about West Germany, like the whole point of the campaign in the first place was to distract the Soviets from an advance in the West. So this talks about how that distraction actually worked and how the Soviet front in the West is starting to die down. And then we're talking about what's actually happening in Georgia. You know, the citizens are supporting the revolutionaries. Talking about NATO victories. A previous mission here what happened in that mission, how it went down, and then just kind of talking about where we are at right now, right before the mission starts. A little bit of information about the Soviets, what their current situation is, the equipment that they've had that they've started to run dry on because of the two fronts that they've been forced into. Here's that picture of the SAM and that airfield. Got a couple more pictures of targets here. Buildings that need to be captured and destroyed. Here's my area of operation. While I don't have the front line drawn out here, it's still kind of clear to see that we've got the friendly PRG coming in from this way, and the NATO coming in from this way, and the enemies here. So you can kind of draw a front line with just your imagination. Kind of is around. You know, you got the flat around here, and then the flat is kind of near more close to town. It's a picture of a river that we're using as a flight path. There's that satellite photo of Tbilisi. These are the specific flight operations. Put some time on targets in there. Time on target is a very military concept, and if you do have the opportunity to include time on target in your mission, definitely do. It greatly adds to that realistic immersion feel for people if you have a specific time that they need to be somewhere. Had some flights, comms, just a picture of the FOB that everybody started out at. The fat cow FARPs that they were going to be using in the mission. We wanted to make sure that we didn't have friendly fire, so the friendlies, the PRGs, were the solid kind of color, or the Soviets were using the default Soviet pattern. And some information on the enemy weapons. And a little bit of NOTAMs, just based on the area. So yeah, that's a pretty detailed briefing. Something that has a whole bunch of elements of a story to make it feel like it's a real place and a real event taking place. And last thing that we're going to touch on about the briefing is the end exercise. So when your mission is over, when we're simulating a mission, right? We have real lives. We got real stuff to deal with, commitments, families, and when we plan a mission and put it in a certain window, we need to be considerate of that window because people have told their families, hey, from 9 till 12, I'm going to be busy with a mission. I can't really do anything, but after 12 o'clock, I should be free. You want to make sure that you have that person going home or not going home, probably already home, but leaving the sim and ready to go back to their lives at 12 o'clock. Because if they said that, hey, I'll be available at 12 o'clock, and your mission runs until quarter to 1, then that might anger some people or frustrate the pilots or frustrate the families, and it's just not an ideal situation. So that's why we talk about the timely index. And now you can just say mission's over because you run out of time, but that's not very immersive. That kind of like puts a dull ending to the mission. Instead, you can make up some actual believable reasons why your mission has to end. And here's a few that I always like to use. The most classic one is nightfall. The sun's setting. It's time to go home. It's too dangerous to fly at night. Even if we do have NVGs, this operation should be daytime only. So nightfall is really classic one to fall back on whenever you need to. Maybe you have a overwhelming amount of enemy forces inbound, so like an evac scenario, or if you're behind enemy lines where reinforcements get called in. You could say we need to leave at this certain time because we anticipate that that's when a bunch of enemies are going to arrive and it's going to be too dangerous for us to operate. Maybe you have a ship, like a Tarawa, that the helicopters are landing at when they're done. You could say the Tarawa is leaving at this time. If you're not on it before then, you're shit out of luck. Um, maybe the communications gets delayed. Uh, the enemy communications specifically. So you could say it's like an operation. You're assaulting a certain point. And you've got some delays to the communications. Maybe you've destroyed their primary means of communications, and they're struggling to get the backup communications online. You could say after 3 hours, the enemy communications are back online. They've called in reinforcements. We need to bug out. And then last one here that I've got written down is your cover's getting blown in some covert operations. So say you're concealed, you've got a certain mission window that you're able to get in there. Maybe there's a gap in radar coverage or security shift change, something like that. And if you don't finish your mission by this certain time, then your cover is going to get blown, so you need to get out before then. That's another reason. These are just a couple ideas. If you have, you can make up any idea you want for having an EndEx, but just have some sort of reason why your operation has to come to an end, and that'll make the mission feel more believable. Like, hey, we got to get this done by now, or else we're gonna get fucked by whatever. Okay, so that's kind of covers all the theory of the workshop here. Any questions about enhancing your briefing?
No, I don't think so. It's given me a lot of good ideas and food for thought.
Cool. All right, let's talk about AI behavior. So the AI in DCS out of the box is pretty stupid. All they can really do is shoot back. Like they detect you and shoot back. That's all they've got programmed into them. Everything else you kind of have to do for them. So here's a couple things that we can do to make the AI smarter, or the AI appear smarter, or have better behavior. Um, the first one is adjusting air dispersal. This is the easiest one. All you have to do is click on the unit. You go to at their starting waypoint, so waypoint 1. You go to advanced waypoint actions. You hit add. You go to set option, and you choose disperse under fire. And by default, this is set to 600 seconds, which is 10 minutes, and that's a very long time. So let's roll back a bit here. What is dispersal under fire, or air dispersal? What this is when you take a minigun or a cannon or a rocket and you shoot at one of these vehicles, they're going to scatter. They're going to just drive off in random directions and move elsewhere to get out of that line of fire. Um, this is by default set to 10 minutes, which means if you shoot them, they're going to scatter, and then it's going to be 10 minutes until they scatter again. So you can either turn this off and they won't scatter at all, or you can set this timer in a couple different ways. So these are the times that I generally use in my missions. So if I have some concealed assets, like maybe I've got AAA that are tucked into a forest, and I don't want them to expose all of them when one of them gets hit, then I'm going to set them to not disperse at all. So I'm going to uncheck that little checkbox there. Also, maybe if I have a crazy fight to the death mobile group, like a couple of technicals with crazy messed up drivers in them, or a kamikaze vehicle or something like that, and I want them to just drive to where they're supposed to be going unless they get blown up, then I'm going to turn off that dispersal. Um, the next one, 10 seconds dispersal. So this would be good for units that every time they get hit, they're going to move somewhere. So if I want them to just always move every time they get hit, then I'll set it to 10 seconds. This is also good for moving groups like a convoy that when one of the vehicles gets hit, they all swerve off the road for a little bit, but they don't actually fully stop. They go back on the road after 10 seconds and then continue on their merry way. 30 seconds, maybe I've got a convoy on the road. I want them to stop, think for a second, look around, get their bearings, and then once they've done that, then they're going to resume right away. And 60 to 300 seconds. This is what I use for groups that are more organized. So if I have like an organized military or a much more structured insurgent operation, I'll actually have them stop and spend at least 1 minute to 5 minutes looking around and making sure it's safe to proceed. So mess around with this, see what the dispersal's like, and it'll definitely change the way your AI behaves from what they do out of the box. I always recommend setting this in every mission that you have.
Yeah, I've played with it a little bit.
Yeah, there's really almost no reason to have 10 minutes dispersal for any ground units in DCS. Okay, so let's look at some reinforcements or QRFs. So QRF, or Quick Reaction Force, is a group that's gonna respond when another group is needs reinforcements or support. So the way that I got this, I've got two groups. I've got my defender group that's gonna stay still in the tree line here, and then I've got a QRF in town. I've given the QRF a path. This QRF is set to late activated, so they're not actually spawned in yet. So what I've got is there's 3 vehicles in the defender group. If any of those 3 vehicles get damaged, it activates the QRF, and the QRF is going to drive towards that defender group and go support them. Retreating is something that we could take a look at. So say I've got a group here of 6. I think there's 6 vehicles. Yeah, there's 6 BTRs here, and they're gonna drive out, and they're gonna stop here, and this is where they're gonna be setting up. After 4 of those 6 BTRs were destroyed, the other 2 BTRs can be like, screw this, I'm out of here, and they're gonna head on and bug out. They're just gonna peace out. They're gone. So how I did this is I've got a hold command. So you'll see on this waypoint here, waypoint 3. So they come off the road, and then they come to waypoint 3, and then they're given a hold command. So they just stop in the field and they wait there. So when they hit waypoint 3, they're just going to stay there waiting. When they've taken the damage, I'm going to issue, you'll see here, group alive less than 35%. So that's going to say that there's 2 units remaining. I'm going to give them an AI task push to go to waypoint 4. So what that's going to do is going to tell them go to waypoint 4, and once they hit waypoint 4, then they're going to start going to waypoint 5, and etc. like that. So what I do is I go to the triggered actions, which is this little button over here, and I hit go to waypoint, and I pick waypoint 4, and so once only 2 of those 6 units are left, they're gonna bug out and retreat. Reactive recon or armor screen. So this is a bit more logic we're adding to the units. So let's say I've got 3 groups here. I've got a screen group, I've got a defender group, and I've got sort of a further behind defending group. What I want to do is when the blue units enter the screening zone, so this is the area that the group is observing or monitoring. When the blue units enter that zone, the screen is going to fall back to a fallback position here, and the defender's going to relocate to fortify this position over here. So they're going to be like, oh, the enemy's coming from the east side, we're going to move over and support the east side instead. So what I did here is I've given them waypoints, and they're on the ground and they're alive, but I had to create a group stop command. So basically, what this trigger here is, it says once. It's a once trigger. It has no conditions on it, and the only action on it is group stop, and I've got group stop screen and group stop defender. For the actual reactive reconning or screening, I've got part of coalition in zone, blue, and ground. So when blue guys enter the detection zone, as well, I've added group alive. So this is only going to happen if the screen group is still alive. So, you know, a recon group can't say, hey, there's bad guys coming down this pathway if the recon group is dead, right? So I want to make sure that I've got them set to be group alive. That way our pilots can say, hey, look, BTR's over there, look like a screen group. Let's take care of them so that they can't report our friendly activity. So if I got a bunch of K-50s that go and blow up this BTR group, then these blue units can sneak all the way in, and the defender group isn't going to relocate. So it kind of adds that that extra dynamic to your mission. And by ordering the group resume command is what gets these groups to move along their pre-assigned paths here. I know that was a lot. Any questions about that one?
No, just future reference.
Cool. All right, redirection. This is another logic kind of system that I've got set up here. So I've got 4 groups here. I've got 3 stationary groups, and then I've got 1 float group. And the float group is supposed to help out whatever stationary group is seeing enemies. So I've got 3 zones. I've got the DP, the 1 and the 2, which is just kind of it correlates to the waypoints that I've given the float. So when a blue unit enters one of these zones, then I've got a switch condition that triggers. So if there's a blue guy in float 2, and there's no blue guys in float 1 or float DP, so there's only only blue guys in float 2, what it's going to do is I'm going to do an AI task push, and I'm going to have the float, I'm going to go to waypoint 1, or waypoint 2, or whatever waypoint it is. That way, when a blue unit enters this float 2, the float guy is going to be like, oh, I got to go help out float 2 side, so he's going to go and he's going to putter on over to float 2. And then when a blue guy enters float 1, then he's going to be like, oh, I got to reposition and go to float 1, etc. Make sure you put a hold trigger at each waypoint so that when he reaches the waypoint, he doesn't continue on to the next one, he just stays there. Okay, let's go set some of this stuff up in the mission editor now. So I'm gonna pull up my my mission editor here. So let's pick an area that we want to work in. I'm just gonna go to where I was doing this stuff in my slides here. So I'm just gonna pick this area. So the first one is the air dispersal. This is the easiest one. Let's just pick Russia and call it a dispersal group. Make it have some armor down there. I'm gonna put down T-55, so let's say I got 3 T-55s here. They're defending this this compound. I want these guys to relocate every 30 seconds. So all I'm going to do is hit add, not perform command, set option. I'm going to go to disperse under fire, and I'm going to change that from 600 to 300 seconds. That's it. That's all there is to it. So now when these guys get hit, they're going to reposition every time they get hit after 30 seconds has passed from the last hit. Alright, so let's look at the reinforcements, or QRF. So let's say this group is the defenders group, and I want to have a group of BTRs. Or you know what, let's even get fancier. Let's get some AAA. A couple Shilkas are going to come by and take care of the air threat that's bothering them. So their reinforcements are down the road a bit in this compound. We'll just say there's 2 Shilkas there. Give them that air dispersal. Say 60 seconds for them. And we'll call this the QRF group. They're going to set them to be late activated. Then, oh, actually we can leave them on the road, I think. I'm going to give them a waypoint. They're going to just come out here, and then we'll put them in a diamond formation and send them off the road so they can go out in the field and be a little more effective. We'll get them to go a little bit faster on the road there. I guess they can only go 24 knots. So I've got my QRF group. They're sitting here. I've got their path. They're going to come out over here near the defenders, and I'll have them positioned out in the field. So for my triggers, all I'm going to do is do QRF. I'll call it. We'll say we're going to give it a unit is damaged. So unit damaged, dispersal group 1-1. And oh, hang on a second here. I think I've got my Shilkas named as dispersal group. They've added some functions to the mission editor lately where the unit names are kind of done weirdly, and I'm not a big fan of it. So QRF unit is damaged. Dispersal group 1, 2, and 3. Now if I just put these 3, then it's going to wait until all 3 of those units are damaged, which is not what I want to do. So I'm going to add an OR between them. That way, if any of these dispersal group units are damaged, it's going to activate the QRF. Then I'm just going to do group activate and QRF. And that's it.
And that's
So
just the OR button there.
yeah. So you select the condition that you want to put an OR after, and then you just hit OR, and then it'll put one
Okay,
underneath.
cool.
And you can move it up and down if you need to with these little arrows on the side. Alright, now let's look at retreating. So, let's give it to this this dispersal group here, the one that we gave the dispersal to automatically. What we're going to do is we're going to first add a triggered action and do, what the heck was it? Perform task and hold. So that way, as soon as they, actually I think I can do it this way. I just add it to the advanced waypoint action. That way I don't have to trigger it. That way, as soon as they spawn in, they hold their position. Now, before I add any waypoints, I'm going to add this little checkbox here. That way, cause if I've got this group and I start adding waypoints, you see that they turn towards the waypoint here, right? And that's not what I want to do. I want them to stay positioned the way that they are. So I'm going to select this group and I'm going to hit initial. And what initial does is it keeps the heading that I've given them despite the waypoint. So now I can add a waypoint on the road, and they're not going to turn with that waypoint. So I'll add the on-road waypoint, set it to 23 knots, and then just throw it over here. They're going to run away. So I've got their route planned. I've got it set that they're going to hold so that they're not going to actually go follow that route right away. And now I'm going to set up my triggers. So retreat. We'll say group alive is less than, and we're going to do 35%. Because if I do exactly 33%, then that group is actually not going to retreat. Because we want it's a less than, it's not exactly. So you want it between, say we've got 3 units here. You want it between 66 and 35%, so or 66 and 33%. So 35% is the number I'm going to give it. That way, when only one tank is alive, the last one's going to leave. And then I could do group resume for these guys. That way they resume along their path. Or if they've taken a path to get here in the first place, I can give them a triggered action. I can say perform task, go to waypoint, waypoint 1. And then in my retreat, I can do AI task push and go to waypoint. Alright, let's talk about the armor screens. So we've got our defense group up here. Maybe we'll have a screening group just up the road a little bit. So we're gonna call this screen group. We're gonna make them BTR 80s. So I don't know if there's any hills here, but we'll just say that they've got a decent view from where they are here. Plop them down near this field maybe. Got 1, 2, 3 BTRs that are performing armor screen duties in this area. I'm going to give them a zone, so I'm going to put a new zone down, turn it into a quad point, call it screen area. I'm going to hit edit so I can edit the little corners of it. And I'm going to give it, literally going to make their field of view with it. So I put it here for their starting field of view. And we'll say this is about how far they can see. I don't know, just like that or something. That way, when a blue guy enters this screen area, they do their screen duties. Okay, so let's add what they're gonna do. These guys are gonna fall back once they detect an enemy. Once again, I'm gonna set initial so that they maintain their current position, and I'm gonna add a waypoint on the road here. Set it to 40 knots. They go out, they run away fast. And then they're gonna come out and reposition in a diamond formation just beside these buildings here. And I think I'm gonna add another group here. I'm gonna add a repositioning group. Maybe I'll have a second screen group. So we'll say screen group 2. They're over here. Set them to initial. Add their on road. And then what they're gonna do is they're gonna fall back as well, come in from the west, and we're gonna put them in a diamond formation, and they can go out in the field. And again, with these guys and their first waypoint, so the SP waypoint, make sure you add a hold command so that they don't start rolling away immediately. And then we're going to create our triggers for it. So we'll say screen. We're going to do part of coalition and zone, blue, screen area, and ground. Then the commands that we're going to issue is group resume. So screen group 1 and screen group 2. That way, when a blue guy enters the screen area, it's going to issue the group resume command to these two screen groups, and they're both going to fall back. And one more thing, because this screen area is tied to screen group 1, I'm going to make sure that the group still has to be alive for that to actually happen. So if some blue helicopters come in and they blow up the screen group, then this triggered action won't actually happen. Let me know when you're all caught up there.
I'm with you, but if the first screen group was destroyed, the second screen group would never do anything, correct?
Yeah, they would just sit there. I mean, I could also add, I could say, let's add another screen area for them. So I could do screen area 2, and then I could add their field of view. And then maybe they can see through this way, for example. Then I can actually just clone this one and change the zone. So screen area to screen area 2. I can change group alive to screen area 2, and then it'll do the same thing, but with that other screen group.
Cool, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about redirection. So we're gonna add a float group. Maybe we'll say there's more defenders here. I'm just gonna add a couple more T-55s. Just sitting around different areas in the map here. Add one more here, I suppose. It's not any sort of strategic placement of these units. This is just for demonstration purposes. Then let's add a redirection group. So we'll call them redirect 1. We're going to make them BTRs. Maybe we'll have them start out in the middle. But they can hang out in the field here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add first a hold command. Then I'll add the different waypoints. So we'll say this is the first waypoint. We're going to add a hold command to that. Set it to their speed. And very important, you set that the type of waypoint it is. Right now, off-road is not a very good way to navigate AI units in DCS. Anything else is more preferred. I personally like to use the diamond formation. So we've got the first waypoint here. We'll throw another one waypoint, the next waypoint on this one here. So make sure you add the hold command to that. Then Then we'll add one more waypoint. And that'll be over in this field here. And once again, we'll add hold. So we've got our redirect group on the ground. We've got each waypoint, all of them have hold set up in them. Then we're going to go set them up in the triggers. So we'll say, oh, you know what? We've got to set up our zones first. So just for ease, I'm going to just copy these. We'll call it redirect. And then this one is 1. set it up to be the enemy's kind of in this area here. And then we got waypoint 2 here. Just copy that over, spread it out a bit. Try to make sure it's not overlapping. And then redirect DP for destination point. Once again, make sure it doesn't overlap the other zones. Then we're going to add some triggered actions here. So we're going to go back to our redirect group. We're going to go to the triggered actions button just above the waypoints. That's the one with the 4 little circles in an X shape. 5 circles in an X shape. I'm going to hit add, and I'm going to do perform task, go to waypoint. We're going to do waypoint 1, clone that, waypoint 2, clone that again, and DP. And then, because when I go to my triggers, it's not going to tell me which waypoint they're going to, I'm just going to name it 1 for 1, 2 for 2, and DP for DP. Now, last thing we're going to do is set the triggers up for this. So we'll say redirect 1. Say part of coalition, blue is in redirect 1 zone, and we could just say all, because we'll say ground and air. And then I'm going to do AI task push, redirect 1, go to waypoint 1. Under conditions, I'm also going to add all of coalition out of zone, and we're going to do the other 2 redirect points. So redirect 2, clone that, and redirect DP. So what this is going to do is when blue is in redirect 1, but no blue is in redirect 2 or redirect DP, then my redirect group is going to go to waypoint 1. So I'm going to clone this twice. We're going to do redirect 2, change the part of coalition to redirect 2, and then we're going to change all the coalition of the zone to that first redirect zone. And then we'll change that AI task push to waypoint 2. Now for the last one, we're going to call this DP. So once again, part of coalition in zone, redirect DP, and then we're going to change all the coalition out of zone of DP to redirect 1. Then go to waypoint DP. That should solve that. Okay, we're just going to test this out now. So I'm going to add a Abrams group, because I'm going to control it myself. And I'm going to put the Abrams down here. He's on the road. I'm going to make it immortal because I don't want it to blow up. Just testing this out. Just put it close to the waypoint here. Now we're going to be able to see what's going on. All right, so let's test this out. All right, so for the sake of this, I'm just gonna put him into the zone here. Just stop him for a second. Like these guys are moving around. Sometimes the AI drives around when you first start the mission, and if that happens, then you might need to reposition them a bit. But as you can see, most of them are sitting pretty, except for that one group of BTRs there. Okay. So this is my screen group. The Abrams enters the zone here. That screen group is still alive. I can see... Oh my goodness. Sorry, there's some combined arms bugs going on here.
He didn't enter the zone, did he?
He did. This other recon group is repositioning now. These guys, I think I messed them up with a bug, combined arms bug though. There's some weird bug where if you like, sometimes you click on a group and it'll automatically start making waypoints for that group. It's very annoying. Just be aware of that if you're using combined arms. I'm not sure what causes the bug, but what happened was I clicked on this group and then I didn't realize that the bug was on, and I clicked on the ground and it placed a marker down, so they went to the marker and it completely removed all the other waypoints from their path.
Right.
So here, you know what, if I just restart this, let them do their little repositioning here. Okay, so if I click on him and I tell him to go over here, then they've both been detected now, so both these groups are going to start moving very slowly. These guys are having coffee. There we go. So now my screen groups have detected the Abrams, and they're repositioning now because of it. So let's go bother our T-55s over here. Let's say we're gonna go this way. Actually, I don't want you to go that way. I want you to go this way. I want you to off-road your way self there and then go this way. So my Abrams is gonna go up into the float position 1. Let's declutter the screen a little bit here. And my float unit is not repositioning, so yeah, see here I got that bug. Now I've got freaking waypoint markers all over the place. To get rid of that bug, I'm just going to put a map marker down and deselect that unit. Where's my float group? There they are. For some reason they're not moving. I'll have to look into that. Okay, well anyway, let's bug our T-55s that are to the west here if I can find them.
Designate.
Now this might not work because I just moved them with combined arms, but we'll see.
Target. Ceasefire.
Yeah, probably didn't work because I just moved them with combined arms here, but he should be repositioning or retreating now. So let's just restart that mission and we'll do it again. Oh.
Gunner. Heat. Tank. Designate. Target. Ceasefire. Target. Ceasefire.
Okay. So now this last T-55 is getting the heck out of there. He should have been. Oh no, he's engaging me. Let me set his ROE. Nope, he changed his mind. Okay, I'll have to figure this out later. But generally, that's the best way to do it, is to have them go to waypoint, and they're supposed to continue on with the other waypoints. But anyway, let's continue on with the workshop here. Alright, so let's look at some of the more, a couple different advanced functions in the mission editor. Just a couple cool techniques that you can use in your mission. So, automated internal cargo. Let's say you've got some special cargo that you want to use that you can't use as CTLD, or you just want to automate this so that people don't have to use CTLD at all. What you want to do is you want to use this function called the set internal cargo on unit, and we're going to use a couple different functions here. There's going to be 4 triggers that we're going to use to load and unload the cargo of the unit. So the first thing that's going to happen is Outlaw 1 is going to fly into the pickup LZ and land on the ground. And the first thing that happens is it's going to say, oh, okay, Outlaw 1 is inside the zone, and Outlaw 1's AGL altitude is lower than 3 feet. So I'm going to turn on flag 1001. The second step is I'm going to check, okay, is he still inside the zone? Yes. Is he still lower than 3 feet? Yes. Okay, 15 seconds after flag 1001 has triggered, we're going to do set internal cargo on unit, Outlaw 11, 600 kilograms. Then we're going to just make a message, say cargo's been loaded. Now to unload the cargo, we want to make sure he has cargo on board first. So he's going to fly towards the drop-off LZ, and we're going to check 3 things this time. We're going to say, is he inside the zone? Yes, he's in the drop-off LZ. Is he lower than 3 feet? And is flag 1001 indicating that he's picked up the cargo been set? And that is yes. So what are we going to do? We're going to go and set another flag. So we're going to set flag 2001. And then our last trigger is he still inside the drop-off zone? Yes. Is he still on the ground lower than 3 feet? Yes. Okay, it's been 15 seconds since flag 2001. We're going to set his internal cargo back down to 0 kilograms. And then it'll say the cargo's been unloaded. That's all you got to do for setting internal cargo on units. It's pretty simple. This is just a simple structure for checking and double checking conditions in a trigger system. Basic CTLD scripting. These are the 2 CTLD scripts that you're probably going to use most when you're creating a mission, and that's creates in zone and creating an extraction zone. So what this is we've got 2 zones in our map, and we've got 3 groups of units. The first zone is going to be the rescue zone, and the second zone is going to be a cargo zone. So let's say the cargo zone, we need to restock a ship or something like that with CTLD crates. So first we're going to do is we're going to set up our zones. So the first script is make sure that it's at least 1 second after CTLD. So if I've got my scripts loading here in sequence, CTLD is going to load after 3 seconds. So I want to make sure this script doesn't occur until at least 4 seconds later. So set up cargo, time more 4 seconds, and I'm going to put in this line CTLD crates and zone, the zone name cargo 1, which is up here, and then the flag name, which is flag 1001. What this does is every time a CTLD crate is dropped in the cargo 1 zone, it's going to store how many crates are in the zone in the flag 1001. So if there's 4 crates that have been dropped in this zone, when 1001 is going to equal 4. If another crate gets dropped in there, it's going to equal 5. If a crate gets removed, or 2 crates get removed, it's going to equal 3. So let's say I want 4 crates to go in there. I'm going to say flag 1001 equals 4, then the cargo mission is completed. And that's pretty simple, straightforward cargo missions. I'm going to talk about infantry. So if you've got CTLD groups, infantry on the ground, or an extraction group, the Rescue 1 zone, it's similar. Except instead of counting how many are in the zone, it's going to count how many are absorbed by the zone. Because when you create an extraction zone and you dropped troops off in the extraction zone, the troops don't actually go on the ground. They just get, I'm going to say, consumed by the zone. So once again, time more 4 seconds. We're going to do a do script and put this line in here. CTLE, create extract zone. Rescue 1 is our zone name. 2001 is our flag. And this -1 is for smoke. We don't want any smoke on there, so we're going to set it to -1. Now for the win condition, so let's say I want to have 12 troops need to be dropped in here. I'm going to say flag from this the script here, flag 2001, when it equals 12, to do the rescue complete message. Any questions about that CTLD scripting?
Nope, no, I understand it.
Cool. If you want to know more about it, the official CTLD Git is will tell you all about it. You can find
Yeah, I go there all the time.
yeah, lots of high quality information about how to use CTLD in a more advanced way there. Okay, so let's say you want to build a FARP using cargo crates. We're going to use the CTLD crates and zone that we just learned there. So we set up our crates. We've in that setup crate spot, we've got the do script CTLD crates and zone FARP zone 1001, and then we got the flag equals 5. So we got 5 crates get dropped in the FARP zone, then we can create the FARP. And I'm just going to simply do group activate. So this FARP group, we've got a tanker, a Humvee, and a cargo truck, and then a couple markers for people to know where to land. They're sitting over top of an invisible FARP object. So when people land there and these groups are not there, they can't rearm and refuel. But because they're set to late activated, I can activate them after those crates have been dropped, and then this group will spawn in, and then people can rearm and refuel there. A more advanced method of this is the fat cow, and this one's a little bit complicated, so bear with me on this one. So what we've got for setting it up, we have a Chinook. So a fat cow is a Chinook that can work as a FARP, right? So we've got a Chinook. It takes off from this little spot here, flies its route. When it hits waypoint 2, I've added a task here. I've added a land task. So on waypoint 2, perform task land, and then it's going to give me a little triangle that I can drag around. And you can kind of see it here. I put the triangle over top of the where I want it to land. Where I have it landing, I've placed another CH-47. This one is set to take off from ground, and it's set in an uncontrolled state. So because it's uncontrolled, that means it's not going to take off right away. It's just going to spawn in place. And then inside of this second CH-47 that I placed down is my FARP group. So I've got a tanker, I've got a Humvee, and then I've got a little funky dolly thing that works as the supply truck. Simply because the supply truck kind of pokes out of the sides, whereas the other 2 vehicles do not. So you're going to very neatly tuck your vehicles into the CH-47, and you're going to make sure that they're set to late activated as well. And lastly, underneath that CH47, make sure you put an invisible FARP. Also, we're going to put a zone there. I'm going to call it the FARP zone so that we can use it in our triggers later. So now that we're on the trigger side, similar to what we did with the Huey, the outlaw helicopter landing and collecting cargoes, we're going to detect when the fat cow is landed first. So we're going to say the flying fat cow when it's inside the zone, fat cow zone, and when its AGL altitude is lower than 3, we're going to turn flag 1001 on. Now, when that happens, we're going to give it a little bit more time to land, we're going to let it settle, and we're going to say, I don't know, 20 seconds. You could even say maybe 2 minutes, depending on how long you want it to wait for. This is going to be the time for the helicopter to shut down. There's no actual way to shut down the helicopter, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually despawn the flying fat cow, and we're going to activate the fat cow that's on the ground. And not only does this make the fat cow no longer running, but it also makes sure that it's aligned with the groups that you put on the ground, so that it's perfectly lined up with them, and you're not going to have issues with vehicles sticking out of the helicopter. Make sure, very important, that you make sure you deactivate the flying fat cow before you activate the one that's landed. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to activate the FARP. So you could say this one maybe takes, I don't know, 5 minutes for the FARP to activate, but for all intents and purposes, we're going to set 10 seconds later. So that first flag, 1001, we're going to say it's been 30 seconds since it's been activated. And we're going to do group activate fat cow FARP. Now, it's very important that you give at least 10 seconds between spawning the landed fat cow and activating the FARP, because when you spawn a helicopter, it actually moves a little bit. It kind of bounces on the ground until it equalizes. And while it's moving, if you try to spawn the vehicles inside of it, it's going to blow up. If the helicopter is not moving and it's just kind of sitting there, then you can spawn the vehicles inside of it without an issue. So make sure you have at least a delay between spawning the helicopter and spawning the vehicles that are inside of it.
Cool.
We'll look at that in a bit. Another thing here, firefights. This is more of a cinematic thing. So, say you've got two groups of infantry. You got blue guys on the right, and you got red guys on the left. And what you want to do is you want them to start shooting at each other when there's friendly helicopters coming nearby. Maybe it's like a medevac scenario. These blue guys have a bunch of wounded in the trees, and you want them to be troops in contact and they're under fire. But you don't want them to shoot at each other right away. You want them to shoot at each other when the support group comes by. Because in DCS, firefights usually only last about 2 or 3 minutes. So what we're going to do, this one's a very simple one, is we're going to put these units down, and we're going to set two values on them. We're going to put late activated so that they're not there, but we want them to actually be visible, especially if we're going to have scout helicopters go and check it out. Say we have a Recon helicopter outside of this zone. It's going to look at it from a distance. We're going to set the visible before activation, which means that even though these groups are set to late activated, players are still going to be able to see them on the ground. And then for our trigger, it's very simple. We've got our zone. It's about 3 kilometer radius. When a helicopter enters the zone, so part of coalition, blue, enters zone, activate firefight, and unit type helicopter, we're just going to activate both the blue guys and the red guys. And what that's going to do is it's going to let them duke it out for a little bit. And last one we got here, controlling a convoy. So let's say you got a convoy on the ground. I don't have a picture of them on the ground here, but let's say you've got a convoy that you're escorting through a hot area, and you want to be able to stop and start them at will, so that they, if they run into some like armor up ahead, you don't have the convoy just rolling on in there, getting themselves killed. You want to add radio commands for your pilots to be able to control. So what you're going to do is you got 3 triggers that you're going to set up. First, you're going to declare the radio items. So this is a once command, no conditions, and you're going to do radio item add, and you're going to name it Convoy stop, flag 1001, and you're going to set the value to 1. Then you're going to do another one, name it Convoy resume, flag is going to be different 1002, and once again set the value to 1. So let's set up the stop command first. So we're going to say make it a switched condition, that way it can be triggered multiple times. We're going to say flag 1001 is true, because when you push the radio item Convoy stop, that sets flag 1001 to 1, also true. So you're going to say when flag 1001 is true, we're going to tell the convoy to stop, and then we're actually going to turn the flag back off. So very important that you turn the flag off, that way it can be triggered again whenever you want it to. And we're going to do the same for convoy resume, only we're going to change the flag to 1002 and change the group command to group resume. And of course flag off 1002 as well. Oh, looks like I've got one more thing here. So this kind of command is for if you're going to have some bad guys, maybe they're doing a trade deal, maybe they're like a truck is picking up some IEDs from an IED site, and your task is to have OH go out and monitor this IED site for activity. You're going to say, hey OH, we've got a little farm here. It's suspicious activity going on there. I want you guys to head out there and observe it for about half an hour and report any activity that you see. So OH is going to head out, they're going to watch, and maybe we'll have the this vehicle is going to spawn when they get there. And the vehicle is going to come in, and it's going to come pull up in front of this site, and at waypoint 2, I set a hold, perform task hold there, so he's going to stop when he hits waypoint 2. And he's going to enter the zone called the trading zone. And then these guys are going to come out, and they're going to come see him, and they're also going to hold, because I put a hold command at their waypoint, so they're going to stop at the truck as well. They're just going to stand there for a little bit. And then after a determined amount of time, they're going to turn around and walk back to where they came from, and the truck is going to continue on its path and drive on to that house. And I want OH to report that they saw some guys approach the vehicle, wait a minute, and then they left, and then I want them to follow the vehicle and figure out where the address of that vehicle is going to. So just like a really interesting AI behavior for the OH to pay attention to. The triggers for this, it's pretty simple to set this up in triggers. I want 3 triggers. I want the trigger to tell when the vehicle is stopped. I want a trigger to tell when the traders or the individuals have arrived, and then I want a trigger for making everyone leave. So the first one, we'll say the suspect vehicle has entered that trading zone. We're going to activate the group on the ground, the individuals, so that they can go ahead and walk over. And then next trigger, when the individuals on the ground have arrived at the truck, I'm going to turn flag 1001 on. And now I want everyone to depart, so I'm going to say it's been 2 minutes since 1001. I'm going to resume the suspect vehicle, and I'm going to resume the individuals so that they can continue on and do their thing. Oh my, it just keeps on going. I guess I got one more here. Any questions about the last 2? I didn't really stop there.
No. Those are great. Those are going to be great reference points.
Cool. Okay, so this last one here is evac aircraft. So this is going back to some CTLD stuff. So let's say you're doing an evac, you're extracting troops from a city, and you got to bring them to a C-130 so that the C-130 can take them away. So what you're going to do is you're going to put down a C-130 to start at the ramp. You're going to give it a waypoint somewhere so that it has somewhere to go to after it takes off. You're going to put a zone down, and you're going to call it rescue zone. Also with that C-130, you're going to make sure that it starts in an uncontrolled state so that when the mission starts, the aircraft doesn't just start up and fly away. You want it to leave when you want it to leave. So you set it to uncontrolled. And then the last thing, we're going to go to the triggered actions button here, and you got it. See it's in set here. And we're going to add one command. We're going to do perform command, and that command is going to be start. And what that start command does is it tells the aircraft, okay, you can start up and head out now. So how's this all going to work in the triggers? We've only got two triggers. We've got the one to set up the drop zone. So just going back to the basic CTLD scripting that we talked about, we're going to do CTLD create extract zone rescue zone. We're going to have the flag as 1001, and I don't want any smoke to be there. So for the trigger itself, we're going to say that this time I'm going to use a flag is more trigger, because maybe there's an issue and for some reason 9 or 12 infantry end up at the aircraft instead of 8. I'm going to do flag is more 7, which means 8 or more units are dropped into the zone. And then I'm going to do AI task push start. And that's going to start up that aircraft and he's going to leave. And that's all there is to it. So let's go set some of this stuff up in the mission editor. Let's do a few different things here. Let's set up, let's start out with the cargo FARP. So I'm just going to pick a spot here where I want a FARP to be. I'm going to go to static objects, pick heliports, and we're going to pick the invisible FARP. I'm going to put that down. Put it right there. I'm going to create my FARP units. So let's go to, let's call it FARP group. I'm going to do unarmed. I'm going to pick the LUV Humvee, put him down. I'm going to add a unit. Call it the refueler. I'm going to add one more unit. And we're going to do the M939 heavy truck. So these are the 3 basic vehicles required for operating FARP. And then I'll put a trigger zone. Let's just make it a circular one. Say it's just put it over top. Call it the cargo FARP. And then we're going to set up the triggers for this. So, oops. Go to our triggers here. We'll call it CTLD script setup. Maybe I'll move it all the way up to the top so that I can see it and give it a different color. So I got my CTLD time is 3, so I'm going to do time more 4. And then we'll do script. And then the script code is CTLD dot creates capital I N capital Z O N E. And then we'll do a left bracket, quotation, the name of the zone, so cargo, oops. It is case sensitive, so we'll keep that in mind. Cargo FARP. Put a comma there. And the flag, so let's put flag 4001, because we have a 1001 busy already, I think. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway. So CTLD creates in zone cargo FARP 4001. And close that bracket as well. Then we're going to do the cargo FARP trigger. So call this one cargo FARP. We'll say just do one cargo. So flag 4001 equals 1. I'm going to do group activate FARP group, and then maybe I'll put a little message out there too. FARP cargo FARP activated. Maybe we'll even play a little jingle. Okay, so that's the cargo FARP. Now let's do the fat cow. So let's have let's go to a new helicopter object. I'm going to call it fat cow flying. Set it to a CH-47. Just put him on the ramp here somewhere. We're going to do takeoff from ground because I don't want him taxiing all over the airfield. That'll just take forever. Let's set it to... Maybe he can fly over this way. The flat ground. Relatively flat, yeah. We can fly over here. We'll put him at 500 feet AGL. Going about 130 knots. Back it up a bit here. And then at that waypoint, I'm going to do perform task, land. He can land in that field there. We'll even put it take off from ground hot so it doesn't take forever to start up. Then we're going to put another invisible FARP down. Line up our landing with that FARP. Then we'll put another CH-47, we're going to call it fat cow landed. I'm going to set it to take off from ground, not hot. Set it to uncontrolled, and set it to late activated. Lastly, just for safety's sake, because it is spawning inside of another vehicle, I'm going to do perform command and set it to be invisible, or sorry, not invisible, immortal. That way, if something weird happens, it doesn't, it reduces the chance of it taking damage. It still might take damage, so just be aware of that. Okay, so lastly, we need two more things. We need our zone. So we're going to say this is fat cow zone. Put it like, I don't know, 500 feet or so. Then we need our FARP. So we'll say fat cow FARP. We're going to do same thing as before. We got a Humver, a Humvee. Let's line it up with the helicopter. So the helicopter has a heading of 14, so I'm going to give the Humvee a heading of 14. And I'm going to add a refueler and an M939. Actually, yeah. I'm actually going to use a mod here for that M939 because there is an issue. The M939 actually pokes out through the helicopter. So I'm going to go to fortification, and I'm going to pick the VPC car loader, empty. And this car loader has the same attributes as a cargo truck, in that it can rearm vehicles. So I'm going to tuck the Humvee.
That's by default.
Yeah, by default. So I'm going to stick the Humvee in the helicopter here, and then I'm going to stack all the vehicles on top of it. So I got the car loader in there, and then I'm just going to line up this truck just so that they're all hidden inside the fuselage. It's not perfect setup, but it does the job. And once again, these guys are going to be set to late activated. Okay, so we've got our helicopter that flies out there. We've got our landing command. And then we've got our Fat Cow FARP on the ground, and we've got our Fat Cow helicopter on the ground, both set to late activated. So let's go ahead and we'll set up the triggers now. So there's 3 triggers that we needed. I'm going to make these darker blue color. We're going to say Fat Cow landed. Do unit inside zone. Look for the flying Fat Cow. I'm going to do the Fat Cow zone. We're also going to add units AGL lower than, so units AGL altitude is lower than. Pick the Fat Cow flying one. I'm going to set his altitude to 3. And then once he's landed, we're going to use a flag to track it. So flag on, we're going to do 5001. Let's make another one here. We're going to call this one Fat Cow Shutdown. We're going to do time since flag 5001. Give it 20 seconds. Then we're going to do deactivate the first one. So group deactivate Fat Cow flying. And then we're going to do group activate Fat Cow landed. Make sure that deactivate is before activate. Very important. The last one here, we're going to do Fat Cow activate. Say time since flag 5001. We're going to set this to 30 seconds, so that's 10 seconds after the Fat Cow is shut down and they've changed. And then it's going to be the last one, so we'll do group activate and Fat Cow FARP. And then I'll put a little message out there too. So message to all, Fat Cow FARP active. And we'll make a little sound too. Okay, that should be it for a Fat Cow FARP. Okay, so the next one here, we'll just have a little bit of a skirmish between 2 groups. So we'll set the skirmish zone or firefight zone. We're gonna call it firefight. Put our units on the ground here. So let's give some infantry. Just stick all these guys in trees here. Then we'll do the same. Oh, I named these guys Fat Cow FARP. Let's call them blue guys. So the late activated and visible before activation. And then we'll put down the red guys, so we'll call it red guys. Be Russian. Throw them up in the trees here too. Once again, late activated and visible before activation. And now for a trigger, we're going to do Firefight, part of coalition in zone, blue, Firefight, helicopter, and we're going to do group activate. Blue guys, clone that, and red guys. Alright, this next one is controlling a convoy. So let's call it Convoy. Keep it simple. I'm going to make a blue. Let's make it a striker convoy. So, IFE striker. Put him on the ground here. Set their speed to, I don't know. Let's make them clipping along at a cool 40 knots. Then I'll just give them a little bit of a route to follow here on the ground or on the roads. Just something long enough that's going to give us time to mess around with it. I don't know, they're going for a joyride. So that's half an hour of driving, that should be long enough for them. So we're going to go to our triggers here. I'm going to do convoy start. Oh shoot, sorry. It needs to declare the radio. So let's go back to our setup here. We could even throw it into the CTLD script setup. Honestly, this just all we got to do is just add the radio items at the start of the mission. So we could do add a new one to the CTLD script. We could do radio item add. We'll say call it convoy start or convoy stop. I mean, we're gonna give that flag 6001 and set that value to 1. I'll just clone that again. Call it convoy resume. Set that flag to 6002. And we'll leave the value as 1 as well. Okay, so go to my convoy stop, not start. My convoy stop command.
I got a dummy question for
What's up?
you. Why couldn't you do that here? Why did you have to go back to the CTLD script?
I didn't have to do CTLD script. I could have done it anywhere. I could have done it in the Mist one, the Moose one. Honestly, it's just I need to declare the radios at some point. So I could even make a new trigger for all I care. Just say like new radios or something. And then like do it there.
Okay.
But it's just I'm declaring it somewhere. I'm keeping my triggers list neat by just throwing it in with the CTLD script.
Roger that.
Anyway, so the convoy stop command. So we got flag 6001 is true. I'm gonna do group stop convoy, and we're gonna do flag off 6001. And then maybe I'll make a message come up too. So we'll say convoy is stopping. play a sound too. I'm going to set this condition to a switch condition, or this trigger to a switch condition. That way we can trigger it multiple times. So I'll clone that, do a convoy resume, flag is true, 6002, do group resume, blue guys, oh not blue guys, convoy. Flag off, 6002, convoy resuming. Okay, that's all there is to that. Let's do our observation group here. Where do I want to do that? Let's do that up here. Yeah, up here is good. So I'm going to put down my suspect vehicle. It's going to be Russian, make it a Ural or a Zil or something. Truck. Some sort. See, he starts out here. That anyway. Fancy truck. Let's say he's gonna go to this farm over here. He's gonna meet some guys and pick up some bombs or something. Set it to run at 35 knots. At this waypoint, I'm gonna do perform task, hold. And I'll add another waypoint. Maybe he's gonna go to this town and pull into this back lane here. So, like on road to there, then we'll do off-road order. He'll pull in to that back lane. Now I gotta put my individuals down. So we'll say, we'll call them individuals. Use some guys carrying AKSs. Be kind of sitting off to the side in here. Set to late activated. And diamond formation. I'm gonna add a hold command when they go up to the truck. Because the trucks have some inertia, I'm gonna put them a little bit forward. Maybe they'll head on out by walking this way. They'll even walk into the building or something. If that works. Experimentation time. Okay, so we're going to set up our trigger zone. So, trade zone. Get nice and small. And we'll set up our triggers. So we'll call this one suspect stops. Do group and zone, suspect, and trade zone. We're gonna activate the individuals. So group activate individuals. Do individuals arrive. Um, another part of group and zone, individuals, and trade zone. Do a flag. So flag on. Let's call this 7001. And then last one we're going to do is trade complete. Do time since flag on this one. So flag 7001. Let's just make it 30 seconds for the sake of testing. We're going to do group zoom for both of them. So group zoom on individuals and clone that, and group zoom on suspect. That should be enough for them to do their little trade, and then be on their merry way.
Cool.
The last thing that we're going to do is evac aircraft. I don't think the C-130 fits in this airport, so I'm going to do a Blackhawk. So we'll do UH-60. Take off from ramp here. I'm going to call it Evac Hawk. Make it an uncontrolled state. And then I'm going to set my zone, evac zone. Say it's the, geez, hang on a second here. Make that smaller. Say that they got to drop them off at the ramp. And then we're going to give him a place to go to. So let's say he's going to go fly to Tripoli and just land on the beach. Because you're evacing people to a beach party. I don't know. We'll go and, oh wait, one more thing. In the triggered actions, we're going to do perform command, start. Alright, so let's go set that up. Oh wait, we need some evac guys. So let's do extract 1. Make them M4 infantry. We'll just maybe they're just a little bit lazy. They don't wanna move. We're gonna put them just down the ramp here a little bit. Put 4 of them down. So extract 1. Group 4 guys on the ground here. So for our triggers, just a couple here. We're gonna go back to our CTLD setup. Clone that do script, and we're gonna go CTLD CTLD extract zone. Call it evac zone, and we're gonna use flag 8001. Oh, sorry, CTLD create extract zone, evac zone 8001, and for that smoke mark you gotta do a -1 if you don't want any smoke there. So we gotta do our evac, so evac complete, say, just do flag equals for this one, 8001 equals 4. Do AI task push and evac hawk start. I'm gonna do messages as well, just to let people know that it's done. Okay. So that kind of sums up all those advanced triggers. Let's go, let's throw a Huey down here. For ourselves. I think we need a crate, so let's set up a CTLD crate spot. We use this beer keg. Call it Logistic 1. Yeah, let's give this a test here. Let me make myself immortal just because we learned from the first workshop that we want to be immortal when we're testing things. Okay. Let's give it a go, shall we? Hopefully everything worked out. So first we're going to watch the FARP group, and then we're probably going to reset the mission so that we can watch the what'd you call it? Those guys on the ground. So our 47 is going to take off here. It's going to head on out to the LZ. And he's going to land. About 20 seconds, he should despawn. There we go. And then 10 more seconds, and boom, the FARP is activated. So you've got a helicopter on the ground, and if you look close enough, you can see all the vehicles tucked underneath it, but to most people, they're not going to see that. So there's one FARP done. Is this guy still driving? He still hasn't gotten there yet, so we can watch him. So this is our suspect vehicle. Let's say I've told OH, hey guys, I want you to watch this farm here. So OH is you know, sitting up here like, oh, there's a truck coming. What's he doing? So the truck comes up, should stop. Seems like he's got quite a bit of inertia. Just a quick note here. I believe our stop trigger was all the way over here. So just seeing how long it took him to stop, maybe we'll consider making them meet him over by this these trees instead. But here come the guys coming out of their hiding place. They're gonna come up to where the truck was supposed to be and talk to him for a little bit. Then everyone's gonna depart. So they're gonna walk away, and the truck is gonna leave. Then OH can follow the truck to wherever the truck is heading off to. What else have we got? We got the convoy, right? So we got our convoy rolling around, and there's some bad guys up ahead. We're gonna open our radio menu and do convoy stop. So they're just gonna stop where they are. Then it's like, okay, all is clear. We do convoy resume, and they're gonna start rolling away. Simple too. Alright, we've got the cargo FARP here, which I think I forgot to set them to spawn properly. So we'll have to look at that. And these guys, looks like I also had them Oh, you know what? I think the Chinook flew through their zone. That's what happened. Let's reset this a bit. Let's take a look at that the FARP first while we're at it. I forgot to set them to late activation. That's all that happened. Move the Chinook over here. I'm actually not really sure what's going on here. Something weird with my controller. Alright, we're doing this hard mode.
You gotta fly with a keyboard.
Oh yeah, you betcha I am. Okay, let's pick up our crate real quick. So let's do, I don't know, net cargo. Let's do pick up troops. Let's go drop these guys off. So I land here, my Blackhawk, and if I drop them off, they should be consumed by the CTLD zone. So CTLD, troop transport, unload, and you see the top dropped into the UH-1 into evac zone, and then
Yep.
if we wait long enough, the Blackhawk should start up here.
There you go.
He might actually be waiting because I'm in the middle of the taxiway here, so let me get out of the way. This is kind of why I had the Chinook shut off from the ramp. But if your AI, you find your AI is not leaving, sometimes it's because the taxiway is blocked off. Let's go drop this crate off at that FARP. So I think this one was... Oh, I think it was right over here. Yeah. Gonna drop like a rock here. I don't think that's close enough. Should be right about here-ish. Yeah, good enough. There we go. So,
Cool.
we got a FARP here. Probably rearm and refuel if I wanted to.
Request refueling. Request rearming.
Cool.
Yeah. What else? Was that it? I think that was it. Oh, the troops in contact one. Where was that? That was over here, right? Yeah, let's head over that way.
Refueling complete.
They're gonna yell at me. Oh, maybe not.
Unable to comply.
Ah, there they go. Okay, so let's say we're going over to a troops in contact area, and you've got your pilots in a flight flying along. You're wondering, oh, where's this contact area? I start seeing some firefighting going on up ahead there. Oh, too bad I don't have door gunners. Could help them out. Yeah, now you come in and it's like, oh, there's a firefight going on there. I think I know that's where we're going. So then you can save the cinematics of a firefight for when your pilots are going to be able to see it. Just a little bit more fun, I guess. That's the way to put it.
Cool.
See, look, I'm already here, and there's already only 2 of them alive. Anyway, that pretty much sums up the workshop.